After setting up a standing desk, you might have noticed this. A monstrosity of cables going up and down with the desk that attracts the worst kind of admonishment and comments like these. The worst part, they're 100% right. Ways to hide your cables come in many shapes and sizes, and as awesome as it would be for the views, unfortunately there's no one-size-fits-all solution. One option is to boldly embrace the world and go bare, cables out like in parts of Europe. Today, we have a video tutorial on one option for standing desk cable management that I personally like, in the form of a cable tray. We'll include where to purchase, discuss placement on the underside, setup instructions, setup tips, and straightforward cable management techniques. I think a cable tray is one of the best solutions, although do your due diligence. This is only one option out of the many available options for cable management, so in addition to this video, I would recommend checking out others on how they did their setups, so you can pick your favorite, and hopefully they'll also cover their pros and cons like we'll do in this video. The standing desk is a Jarvis model by a company called Fully, and as part of this upgrade, I've also upgraded the tabletop. I'll leave the instructions and techniques on quickly and easily switching tabletops to a separate video, and when that's done, the link will appear at the top right now. You might also have noticed the screen setup with the iMac. That's a setup I discovered completely by accident that out of every experiment I've done, I feel is the best, and that link will be now. For review, assembly tutorial, and stability test, and others of the desk, all links will be in the description. Okay, let's dive into the cable tray. This part of the video is the installation procedure and will include pause icons so you can watch through first and then follow along, pausing at the necessary steps to get everything set up. By the way, a requirement is that your tabletop must be at least 1/4 inch thick, so the screws that hold everything together have something to hold on to. If you've already installed the standing desk mechanism, then this shouldn't be a problem. My tabletop is 1 inch thick and had a slippery surface, but we'll save that for the drilling part of the video. You'll want to start with a nice clean work surface. Take a moment to clear everything off your table so you're left with a bare desk. Unpack the new cable management tray. It comes in both 48 and 60 inch versions, and we're covering the smaller one on a 72 inch wide by 30 inch deep tabletop. The following materials and tools are required: cable tray, drill or Dremel, small drill bit, screwdriver, optional tape, and would be helpful, a power strip that can be mounted and has preferably screw holes for mounting. Here we arrive at the placement point, which is how deep and where you want to mount the cable tray. This is pretty straightforward for most standing desks since you'll already have the support bar across the middle of the desk. Some questions to ask are how much space you have behind the desk, since most cable trays have a lip, and how many tools you're mounting to the underside of the desk, and more importantly, where. This is one of the places I made a mistake since I have an external graphics card. Since I sit or stand closer to the left side and have my external graphics card on the left, in hindsight I would have put the cable tray closer to that side because I ended up with some exposed cables to the graphics card, yet I went with the prettier option of putting the cable tray directly in the center. What I did need to measure out for is the power strip I needed to mount to the underside and wanted hidden behind the cable tray. Before you decide where to place the cable tray, play around with any underside mounted accessories and put them on the tabletop before you mount the cable tray, and make sure everything can still be mounted and there's minimal space for exposed cables. Last but not least, the safest choice regarding depth to go with in most scenarios is a few inches from the back of the table, where the lip of the cable cover matches up with the back edge of the table. But we want to exercise caution here because we want to make sure we have ample leg space to work with. And the tabletop in this video has plenty of depth at 30 inches. For tables with around 20 inches of depth, I'd recommend mounting the cable cover farther back, almost as far as you can, so you have plenty of room under the desk when you sit down. Make a small removable mark using a pencil or something else to mock up where you want the cable tray. With holes marked up for the cable cover, at this point we'd also mark down any holes for things mounted to the bottom of the desk. For power extension strips, you can use the tried and true sheet of paper technique, which is placing a paper over the strip and measuring the strip on the paper and marking down where the holes are to position it on the underside of the table. Drilling is a straightforward process, but there are a few things to keep in mind. With the holes marked, select a drill bit that's a bit thinner than the inside part of the provided screws you'll be attaching any accessories with. It's also helpful to track how deep the screws will go and making sure they don't come out the other side of the tabletop. Use tape to control how deep the drill bit will go by measuring how deep the screws are, make sure they won't come out the other side, and then wrap the rest of the drill bit thoroughly. Otherwise, the tape can unfold and the drill can press through. For slippery table surfaces like on this tabletop, We want to press in an indentation of the hole we're going to drill, using something sturdy like the drill bit itself or a small nail to make sure that when we're drilling the drill won't slip. Alternatively, we can use painter's tape to make sure the drill doesn't slip and make the marks on the painter's tape to prevent the drill bit from sliding. Since I've been doing this for a while, I'm going with the by hand method without tape for drill depth, and I'm making the holes a tiny bit less deep than screw length. At this point, we drill the holes for the cable cover and any accessories. With holes drilled, you can begin screwing everything in, making sure to first loosely place the cable cover and making sure the screws all fit, tightening them a bit, and once all of the screws are in, just a bit to make sure the cable cover fits, tightening them all the way. Attach any accessories to the tabletop at this time as well, including the power strip. I like to screw things in by hand rather than with a drill, to optionally check and make sure the screws aren't going through the table. It might take a bit longer to do things by hand, but you will be happier with the end result. And that's it. Now onwards towards the stability test. The cable management tray by the stand-up desk store is about 10 inches from the desk and is a relatively thin sheet of metal, and if I had to dock any points, it would be for the slight wobble. There are no wobble issues when the desk is raising or lowering, but if you bump into the tray often, there's a slight wobble to it. The adjustments we made for how deep we mount it, and the attention we paid to placement, will hopefully remove this concern. Personally, I think it's a good balance between how much this wobbles on impact and how thin the cable tray is, without adding too much weight to the standing desk that has to raise and lower on the motors. For tidying everything up, and getting everything to run through only one power cable, or one power cable and one internet cable to the entire desk, I used a combination of rubber bands and Velcro straps, and cable adhesives in limited amounts that came with the standing desk, and a cable runaway for running the cables to the desk over the skirting on the floor. And that's it. No cable ties, no more permanent solutions. Items like rubber bands are cheap, you can pick colors that match your cables, and Velcro straps make it easy to attach more permanent cables like power to the pre-milled slots in the cable tray. With cable ties, once you trim them, they're harder to put back, and while I personally have nothing against them, I find them a bit unwieldy when it comes to undoing cable ties, which requires a tool like a screwdriver. Furthermore, cable tubes, with a popular example being IKEA's, are a nice aesthetic option, but I find them to be on the pricier side and a bit involved to install and remove, whereas rubber bands and Velcro straps are cheap, disposable, can be bought in bulk, and do a terrific job of tidying everything up while also be easy to undo and easily adjustable. For cable management, it's a straightforward process of eyeing up how much length of cable you need, wrapping it around a few fingers, tightening it up with 2 rubber bands double twisted, and then optionally attaching loose cables to the slots in the cable tray. The cables are easy to move and are out of sight and out of mind. Take the time to play around with your cable management, and feel free to leave links to any setups you end up making in the comments below. Last but not least, I used some of the included adhesives to mount the standing desk cables and tuck them away under the table legs to hide the motor cables. They look like cable ties but come easily undone as opposed to their cable tie counterparts. An upside of going with the cable tray option is that charging cables and adding and removing accessories becomes a breeze. If you bought a new Thunderbolt accessory, or need to fetch that charger that you need for on the road, it's easy to place it where convenient and remove the accessory when necessary, and to get easy access to the back overall. This is versatile in terms of how it can be configured, and the rest is up to your budget, imagination, and professional needs. It includes larger accessories versus smaller, more compact cable management solutions. Downsides. First and foremost, with a cable tray, you'll need to do the appropriate planning, not that there's much to it. Since cable trays have a certain height, you run the risk of bumping into it if your desk isn't deep enough. So in general, any desks deeper than 24 or so inches are safe for most people. I bumped up the latest tabletop to a depth of 30 inches for leg space, cable management, and more of a surface for videos. One more con is the visual appearance, which might not be to everyone's taste since you see your tray, and might be going for a minimal aesthetic. What you'll want to pay attention to next is how your accessories are mounted under the desk, if there are any, and you'll want to make sure that the cable tray is placed as close as possible to those accessories. As you'll see here, I made the mistake of placing an underside mounted graphics card a tad too far, so I had to get creative with how I managed the cables. Because I went for a centered cable tray but a graphics card mounted off to the side, luckily for most this will not be an issue and you can center the tray. With those two concerns out of the way, the cable tray is great for easy hiding of cables. Management of cables becomes easy since you can lightly attach them to the back and they're out of sight and out of mind. Next we have results. This is what the setup looks like before the cable tray, and this is after. Most of the cables are tucked away and those that show are pretty clean. Today we covered the installation, stability, and pros and cons of using a cable tray for cable management, and covered some techniques on how to make your setup work. Links to the products can be found in the description, and I can wholeheartedly recommend this kind of setup, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in today. If you liked the video and would like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe and/or like or dislike button down below. Those really help. If you have any questions, my email, Twitter, Instagram are all listed in the description as well. For videos in which I do link products for sites like Amazon, those are affiliate links, so a small portion of the proceeds go towards supporting the channel, and let me buy things to then review, experiment with, and make videos on. Let me know if you'd like to see anything specific.